We're gonna make some textured ring bands using wire this time. I'll do sheet a different time. We're gonna use 12, 14, and 16 gauge wire, and we're gonna texture them with various hammers that I have here. We're gonna need your wire, ring mandrel, hammers. I'm gonna use a rawhide mallet, a dead blow nylon hammer, just to show you guys how they work, and then I'm gonna use these three to texture the ring bands. This is the Precisionsmith Sharp Texturing Hammer by Fretz. I bought this myself quite some time ago and I absolutely love it. It is my favorite, one of my favorite hammers, because I bought this one a few months back and it just leaves a really nice soft texture. It's a planishing hammer, so one side is really nice and flat. That is to take marks out of your metal after you're done forging it with the other side, because it's got a slight dome. We're gonna use this ball peen hammer too to do another one. We're gonna use this side with the ball because it leaves a nice little peening texture, but it also has a flat side too. And this is an economy one that I got from FDJ Tools on Etsy. I'll link it. So I will reference all the sizes of everything that I use. First, we're gonna use 16 gauge round wire. You'll also need a ring mandrel. This one's from Pepe Tools. It's really nice. It's hardened steel, so it won't get those dings in it. So the 16 gauge was supposed to be a 7. It is now an 8.5. So you'll have to do some research and see what happens. This one is 14 gauge. It's just over 8.5. And this is the 12 gauge, which ended up being a little bit more than 7, but I didn't do too much to this ring. So I started them all out at a size 7. That's what I'm gonna do again this time. So I've got my digital calipers here. You don't have to use digital ones, but it's easier. I had a Motitoyo from my dad. I didn't even know that they were even actually really fancy, but until I got these, and I love them. So it's 1.28 millimeters. I need to make a size 7. Like if you don't hammer it, it'll be a size 7. I need to have a strip that is 57.8 millimeters thick. So I'm gonna put my calipers to 57.8-ish. Perfect. I'll leave it there. First, before I go marking my metal, I need to make sure that this edge is flat. So this is a miter jig, miter vise jig, whatever they're calling it. They call it different things in different places, but this is a miter jig. It has an area where you can get a 90-degree angle, and then there's one for a 45-degree angle. So it goes like that, right there. We're gonna use the 90-degree angle. I'm gonna stick my wire in right next to this little tab, and that lets you line it up. You can do this with like strip and tiny sheet, but you're gonna line it up to that spot, and I need my light because I am blind as a bat. What I do is use my fingernail, I flip it on its side, and I try to make sure that everything is lined up to that very edge. There. And then I push it out just past where the angle is. You know, because it's cut kind of at a slight angle. So I'll get it to where it will be straight once I file it, perfectly flush with this metal. I only use this file with this miter jig. You don't want to use your best one with it because it's hitting the steel and eventually it's going to ruin it. So far it's doing good, but I will say that when I do try to use it, it's a cut 2, I think. When I use it on just metal in general, it doesn't work as well as my other cut 2 half-round file that I use. So I only use this one with this. And I would say to get one dedicated to that if you get in miter jig. You don't have to have it, but it makes life so much easier. It is. I wish I would have bought it first thing, but here we are. So that edge is flat now. You just got to go over it a couple times, make sure it's flat. I'm going to open it up, drop my wire out. Now, when you do that on the miter jig or anything else, you get a slight burr. A slight burr on the edge, and I'm sure you probably can't see that. But you get a burr on the edge, and you need to get that off. So very, ever so lightly, just run your file along that edge. This is a needle file, half round needle file. I use it just about anything. And then I'm gonna very lightly drag it across the top in that straight line, just to get that burr off of there. I'm gonna try to make this as straight as I can. Kids are asleep, so I have to do the hammering when they wake up. So I'm going to straighten it with my fingers. And all you have to do is rub the wire between your two fingers. The heat will transfer and you'll get a nice, fairly straight piece of wire. This block I got from PMC Tools. I'm gonna put a link, Amazon link to it, I think, if I can find it. The anvil on it didn't come like really nice and smooth or even flat. It has a slight curve to it, so just be aware of that. Sometimes when you buy things that are slightly cheaper, that's what you're gonna get, but it's worked so far for me. I have a steel block that I use every day that it's still not the greatest, but it's much better than this. So I know it's flat, so you can always file away marks. You can't really file away, I mean you can, but having it curved is just not cool. So what you can do, you can either hold your calipers at the very end right here up against the wire and lightly drag that top tip across, but that's really hard to see. So what I am going to do, and what I typically do, is mark it. I'm going to mark that line that I just made with my Sharpie, if it'll mark. Here we go. Okay. Be careful with your calipers too. If you bang them all around, they won't last long. I use Pepe's nano blades, and I have for a very long time now. I have a number 3 blade in there. This is one of the kerf holders that they sell. It has stickers in there where you can put each one. It has the gauge that it's used for, and you know, the drill size and stuff like that. I'm using a 3 for this. I know it says 22 gauge, but it'll work for cutting a little piece of wire. When you're first starting out, I would stick to the gauges that it says so you can get a feel for things. Intricate cuts need thinner blades, but you have to be careful with that because the blade will snap. You drag your saw from the back along whatever lubricant that you have. So this is Line Punch Forge's Burr and Blade Balm. I love it. Before that, for my saw, I was using Stay Sharp by Auto Fry, or I also have Burr Life by Rio, and finally the Bench Basics Blade Butter by Pepe Tools. And I really like this actually for using with your burrs or like the cutters, the disc cutters. I only don't like it, like using it for my saw frame, because I don't like it being on my hands. This anvil came with this bench peg and I love it. So if you get one, you can always alter it. Like you can see, I kind of cut to the left, apparently. You can alter things. I haven't really altered this much except for to put this in here. You're gonna start, and when you're using a little section like this, what I will do is put my index finger on the back of my saw blade to get things started. And put my 2 fingers on either side and push, push up. And that'll get things started. And then you can move your hand back where it goes and slowly go up and down. Do not force it. It's not gonna help. Silver is a lot easier to cut than, say, copper or brass. we're going to find the edge that we just cut, and we're going to stick it in the miter jig and straighten things out. I'm going to do the miter jig again and put it in that side. Use my fingernail to push it down, make sure everything's all lined up nicely. Start tightening the sides. Don't push it too hard. It doesn't need to be like squeezing the metal, because you don't want it to do that. It'll mar it all up in there. So, and then push it first and lift it. You don't want to go back and forth with these files. You can with diamond files, but not with regular cut files. But it didn't. All right. Let me get the rest of that burr off of there. If you're going to get files, get at least a half round needle, a barrette needle file, and then a flat hand file, a ring file, which is a half round file that is skinnier. So those are both hand files, and then a half round file. So this is the half round file. You can put it inside bigger rings, but I found that it was really hard to do that. So I got this ring file from, both of these are from all of my files are from Auto Fry mostly. But this one's a lot skinnier, so it'll fit in all sizes of rings. But to start out, I would definitely get those and like try to get them in cut 1 or 2. Those are the best I've found so far. And then the 4s and 5s are great for making things nice and pretty at the end. It doesn't cut off as much metal, so it's more like sanding instead of filing. So the next tool you're going to need is a half round and flat pliers. There's a half round side and a flat side. So you're going to put the half round side away from you if you're right-handed. You're going to put it on the very edge, and then just turn it. Squeeze and turn. Try to keep it straight. Squeeze and turn. Squeeze and turn. Squeeze and turn. And all moving up as you do it. And then I'm going to have to pull this out a little bit. Flip it over. Do the same thing on the other side. And make adjustments. So I always do it like real aggressively at first, and then I move things around because it's not going to line up perfectly anyway, so might as well just try to get it exactly the way you want it to be first, and then you can kind of manipulate things a bit better. So it's almost there. So look at that, that's pretty close. So then you're gonna move it around with your hands. So we're gonna try to make a circle, and we want those two ends to meet. We're gonna take these and just a little bit push them past each other on both sides. Now, a way to do that without having to push them past each other, because it's hard with the thicker wire, you can get these bow closing pliers and put it right across from your seam and just gently squeeze it. The bow closing pliers do not come with the leather. You have to kind of add that by yourself with the double-sided tape. I need to get some more. Okay, so it doesn't come out perfectly just right off the bat. So the two edges are just ever so slightly, and you probably can't even see it, a little bit off. You'll have to just play with it, but they're flush up against each other, which is perfect. There we go. Okay. There it is. The seam is right there at the top of the screen. The second one is 14 gauge wire, round wire from Rio Grande. I'm going to do the exact same thing with this and the 12 gauge, and then we'll go over and solder them all at the same time. I'm gonna face all the joints facing me in the center. I've got wire solder here that I rolled out, but you can hammer it with one of your cheap hammers. I already cut up some pieces for this purpose, so. We're only going to use hard solder today, but when we go to attach anything to the bands, we will use probably hard solder, honestly. Hard is best. I'm going to sit the seam directly on top of the piece of solder so that the solder is touching both sides of the rig, like of the join. I just realized that I haven't had my macro on this entire time, so sorry for the poor images if I got real close and you couldn't see something. So hopefully you can see the little pallions are right underneath the joins right there, and it's touching either side of the join on every single one. If you are new, you'll probably want to get a butane torch. This is the Pepe Tools Tsunami torch. It's got a real strong flame on it, honestly. Like, it's a lot more powerful than I thought it would be. And it just takes butane. You could also use this. I've got a video about this. It's the Gentex small torch for disposable tanks, but I upgraded it to use a standard oxygen tank. It's just like the Smith little torch, but it's a lot cheaper. So let's try out the Pepe one on this. And we'll see. So we put our flex on. That was the Smart Flex from Pepe 2. I've had that for a long time. I really like it. It helps keep fire stain away. Put the flex on there. We got our solder. Now we're going to start heating things up. Sorry if I bumped the tripod. It's like right next to my face. You want to make sure you have as many lights turned off as you can. And for the 16 gauge, I am not really going to have my flame touching it. Just not the blue part of the flame, just the rest of it. Because it doesn't need that much heat. And ever so slightly, it's going to flow. Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to turn this off. Wait until it goes black or gray. Mostly gray is what happens. Quench it and put it in your pickle. Here's my pickle pot. It looks gross, I know, but hopefully you can see. There's the rings in there. Leave them in there for about 5 minutes, maybe. Sometimes it takes a lot less than that. And then we'll be right back. Now that we have all of our rings soldered together, we're going to round them out on the mandrel and then clean them up a little bit before texturing them. So I'm going to start smallest to largest. Got my ring mandrel here from Pepe Tools. It's their gold standard hardened steel ring mandrel. It feels like these numbers are going to stay on there. They might get a little lighter, but they haven't gone anywhere so far, so I'm pretty happy about it. The one that I had before was an economy version from FDJ Tools, which is it's fine, but if you can see,
all right, now you come down.
Some of the numbers
you're not gonna go down the slide?
are almost completely gone.
Go down the slide.
But it was good enough to start. So what we're going to do is tap it around to get it to touch the mandrel on all sides. You can look down it to see that everything is touching, and then to make sure it's all straight, you can tap it down like this. If you don't have a sandbag, you can hold it with the mandrel against your chest. Hold it like this and pull down on the ring as you're tapping it. But I think that's good for that side. This ring is small enough to where you don't have to flip it and do the other side, but I'm going to do it anyway. Should be good. And to get it off, I need to just tap it the opposite way, and it'll start to move. Once you have that done, use my giant dead blow mallet to make sure it's flat all the way around.
I can't understand what wine is.
So there's that one. If you can see here, the ring has some excess solder. So we're gonna have to clean that up with some E-flex wheels, or you could also use a file. Get it off there. So now we're gonna go ahead and do the 14 gauge and the 12 gauge, and I'm gonna speed this up so we can get through it to the next part. Now we're gonna clean up the rings before texture them. Just need to clean them up a little bit. So the best thing that I found to get that off of there and leave it nice and even are the E-flex wheels, but you gotta be careful with them. So for this one, since there isn't that much on there, I'm gonna use the red floppy. Now you can get the knife edge ones too, but I just got a hold of these and I love them. They start out thin, so you can make that little knife edge a little quicker, and they've already lasted a lot longer than the other ones. So I'm going to take my diamond plate. I got these on Amazon for like 10 bucks or something. And I'm going to make that knife edge. So I'm going to do this for every single one, but I might also use, this is the fine. The green is the extra fine, so the red and the blue are ones that I use to remove solder or smooth things out. We're going to just very lightly run it over that seam to kind of smooth things out and get that extra solder off of there. If you have a large chunk of solder on the outside, you may want to start with the blue E-flex wheel. That's the coarse one, and it's really good at cutting, but you have to be very careful and only lightly touch it. I'm going to speed through all of this real quick so we can get to the good stuff. After I get the solder off of there with my E-flex wheels, I will sand it with sandpaper sticks, going from 600 to 800, 1000, 1200, and 1500 if you got it. If it is really scratched up, you might want to use 240 or 400 first. Just go up in grits gradually so that you get a nice, beautiful finish. When we're done with the outside, we are going to sand the inside of the ring with sanding drums. Again, we're going to go through each grit, and don't forget to go through that little edge that I'm sanding right here on each side with each grit that you did for the sandpaper sticks. Once we're done with that, we'll toss them in the tumbler for about an hour and then get to texturing. I already went over this at the beginning of the video, but this is the Precisionsmith sharp texturing hammer. I'm going to use the finer side. Yeah, this side is really sharp and this side is not as sharp. It's got like a flat side there. I'm going to have my ring mandrel on this leather sandbag to keep things nice and uniform. I need to get out my rawhide mallet so that I can push things down if I need to. You're going to take your hammer and I'm going to kink it a little bit to the side and just start tapping. Go down a little bit and then go back. And just tap all along. You can do it as hard or as light as you want. Now I'm going to flip it over and do the exact same thing on the other side. Oops. I think that's good. So now we're gonna do one other thing to this ring. Right, so here it is so far. Nice and shiny. Now I want to do something to the sides. We're essentially gonna do the same thing, but on the side. And I'm gonna switch it up and do the bigger one. Use the edge of the block, because if you use it in the middle, you're gonna hit your block. Flip it over, do the same thing, just a little bit lighter to the other side. It's going to take off those marks. We're going to have to flip it and do it a little bit more on the other side because it's going to take off the marks that we made a little bit. That, and now see the texture's kind of gone from this side, so just with a light touch. Now if you have a margin roller, you can roll the edges there, but they actually look fairly decent to me, or you can burnish it with a steel burnisher. But that one's done. Be right back. We'll do the next one. All right, so for this next one, we're going back to the bag. Ball peen hammer has a flat side and a ball on the end. You know, ball peen. We're going to use this ball peen side on the 14 gauge ring. And just pretty much do the same thing. Except for this time, we don't have to worry about doing it to the side. So you're just going to tap it. Really as much as you want. However much sparkle you want to give it. And then remember to subscribe to the channel because I'm going to be coming out with the next video of this series in about a week or so. And we're going to set a bezel. We're going to bezel set cabochon and rose cut gemstone. After texturing, you do need to flatten your ring out on a steel block, but that footage kind of got messed up, so we're just gonna move on. I feel like that's pretty good. So I'm just gonna take this rounded side of the planishing hammer, because remember it has a flat and a round edge. So, and I'm just gonna gently tap on that ring. It's just gonna give it a really light, like a really nice light texture. I love it. I think that's perfect. What do you guys think? It's so sparkly. And that's because the head of the hammer is polished. Don't forget that. So I'm gonna flatten this on now. These are the two sets that I actually made for making this video. It actually takes a lot to make a YouTube video and do B-roll and whatnot, but I'll be releasing a video in the next 2 weeks on bezel setting a gemstone. I also have some huge plans for the future, so stay tuned and subscribe to my newsletter on my website for a free resource.